We all have days that we remember. I remember one of those days that I shall remember for the rest of my life is the morning of June 7th of 1967. The Six-Day War had begun on June 5th, and we followed it on the radio. I turned on the radio in New York City on the morning of June 7th, and at that time there was a direct line. We heard not merely from the commentator in Jerusalem, but he made sure that we heard what Israeli radio was saying. And the announcer on Israeli radio was not saying it. He was shouting it. Yerushalayim Shalanu, Yerushalayim Shalanu. Jerusalem is ours. Jerusalem is ours. After 2,000 years, Jerusalem was finally in the hands of the Jewish people. The relationship between our people and Jerusalem goes back almost 3,000 years. It was King David who established the capital of the unified kingdom in Jerusalem. Smart move by David. Very, very smart. Because the territory belonged to none of the 12 tribes. No tribe could say it was more privileged than the other. And several years later, or not so several years, but within 20 or 25 years, his son Solomon built the first temple. For 500 years, the Jewish people worshipped at the temple. At a time when others were sacrificing their children. At others, when people were worshipping pine trees, the Jewish people were worshipping the one compassionate and merciful God. And then, of course, tragedy struck. The Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar swept into Jerusalem and destroyed the temple. Our people, or most of them, how many we do not know for sure, scholars debate this, but thousands upon thousands of them were taken into exile in Babylonia. And as we all learned, whatever school you went to, what did the psalmist say? By the rivers of Babylon I wept for thee, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, if I forget thee, let my right arm forget its cunning, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. We never forgot Jerusalem. King Cyrus of Persia allowed the Jews to come back, and they rebuilt the temple. For 500 years again, the Jewish people worshipped the one God in the temple. And then, of course, another disaster. The Romans came, the Jews revolted, and in the year 70 of the Common Era, the temple was destroyed. But the Jews were going to have another run at it. And so in the year 132, they rose again under Bar-Kokhba. This time, massive slaughter. Jerusalem itself, the temple had already been destroyed. Jerusalem was now destroyed. And after the Romans came the Byzantine Christians. And after the Byzantine Christians, in the year 638, Arab armies invaded Jerusalem, took over the land that we call Eretz Yisrael. For a long period of time, down until 1920, Jerusalem, as the land, Palestine, was part of the Ottoman Empire. The Jewish position was relatively good, but always in an inferior position. And then in 1920, the British government received the mandate from the League of Nations. The Jewish position improved dramatically. And in fact, thousands, tens of thousands of Jews made their way to Eretz Yisrael. But it was not an easy time. The most sacred spot for all of Jewish history is what used to be called the Wailing Wall, now called the Western Wall, one of the retaining walls of Herod's temple. We were not allowed to pray there when we wanted. We had to have permission from local Arab leaders. We could not blow the shofar when we wanted to. And if someone acted out of line, at least in the Arab perception, there were pogroms and attacks upon Jews. This is the background for what's going to happen later on. In 1948, the State of Israel will be created. Israeli forces will fight tenaciously in order to hold on to Jerusalem. But the Arab Legion was too strong. Only the western part was going to be held by the Jews. When the Jordanians took over the city after 1948, they destroyed the synagogues. They molested, they devastated the cemeteries. They used Jewish gravestones for lavatories, and they did not permit Jews to go to the Western Wall. And then, on June 7th of 1967, it all changed. 180 Israeli paratroopers gave their lives to win back the Holy City. They moved up Ammunition Hill under tremendous fire, demonstrating great bravery, and again those losses, and put those losses in an American context, it is as if 9,000 American soldiers died, in fact, in order to get Jerusalem. And after 1967, Israel proved its mettle, not merely as a powerful military state, but as a country that was tolerant. In the history of Jerusalem, through all of its conquerors, through all of its occupations, the only government that has protected the holy places of Israel, of all the religions, the Islamic holy places, the Christian holy places, the Jewish holy places, the Baha'i holy places, in the only country that has ever done that, who has ever ruled over that city of Jerusalem, only Israel has guaranteed free access to all of the holy places. In its 66th year, this is of course the 66th anniversary of the creation of the State of Israel. Israel has many, many remarkable achievements. Not the least of them is that Israel alone, it is so important, forgive me for repeating it, Israel alone has protected the holy places of all religions. So one should say, should we not? Yerushalayim Shalanu. It is ours. It should always be ours. But Elie Wiesel always says there's a but. And the but you will see in the film in several minutes. Thank you very much.